Welcome to the Arena Decklist Podcast. I'm Gerry Thompson, joined by Brian Gottlieb, and I had a different show planned for today, but then we got flooded with preview cards because I didn't really check my dates and realize when this is happening. So maybe we'll talk about things like Pioneer and perhaps its relevance and actually greater importance at a future time.
But today, we talk about new Magic cards, baby. The best time of the year is new Magic card time. Streets of New Capenna dropping upon us. Weird vibes from this set, Gerald. The whole theme. Like I don't dislike it. I'm not saying I think it's like bad. It's weird though. It's real weird in the Magic space, and yeah, we'll see if it is something that myself and the rest of the community grows to like embrace and really love and is looked back fondly upon, or if it's just going to be this weirdo moment in Magic's history where we're all of a sudden doing like the Chicago streets with gangsters all just out of nowhere. This is the thing now.
It is strange. I don't mind them trying new things. And
I don't either.
Also, I'm fully aware that the vast majority of things that they could try would probably not register with me as like, oh, this is something I appreciate and connect with. So it's just like hoping the cards are good and fun and interesting to build around and worth talking about. That's all I really care about.
How are you feeling thus far on that front? I don't know that this set has knocked my socks off out of the gate. I think there's some cool stuff here. Not the same level of home runs for me as we saw with Kamigawa, but still a lot of space left. So I'm not ruling out that we get there eventually.
Look, man, we're at 65 of 281. This is the 8th set in standard, so we're going to have a full standard. And they know that 8th set needs to have some bangers in order to see play. So you got that going for you. There are a few cards I do really like so far, but we also just get some triomes and some charms and probably some just, pretty good cycles in general. So we're not done yet. There's still a lot of cardboard to be revealed.
Yep. And good, solid multicolor staples plays very well, especially in regards to the standard format we have now, which is sort of mid-rangey slugfest and an interesting one that changes on a week-to-week basis. So I think a lot of this stuff, for the first time in a while, I'm like, this has a really good chance to hit.
Dude, I haven't even really looked at a Magic card in the last 2 weeks, so you're like, ooh, standard is interesting. It changes all the time. I'm just like, I have no idea.
Well, Gerald, if you were to go to arenadecklist.gg.
I know, but so
don't cut off my plug. Hold on, I'm trying to make us money here. You have to pretend like you don't know and let me finish the plug.
You're going to try and make us money off what? The ads? The ads that barely pay for hosting?
What was our ad revenue last month? How well are we doing?
It was like $2 or something.
Nice. We are banking those big bucks. People talk about the hard work it takes to get to the top of the content game, but sometimes you just got to bask in the dollars. Get those $2 and go buy yourself an Egg McMuffin. Or Egg McMuffin's $2? I don't know. I don't really eat those.
I went to 7-Eleven. A 20 ounce was like $2.40. So
okay. So you didn't get that this month. But if you work hard, maybe next month. Yeah. Maybe next month.
Back in my day, man, you can't even buy a gallon of gas, right? Like back in my day, I remember when like bottled soda and gas were both like 99 cents.
Yeah, I remember 99-cent gas. We are old.
Very old. Showing our age.
Yep.
Anyway, no Mountain Dews, but we have Magic cards at least.
I'll take it.
Cool. Do you want to finish plugging the tier list or anything?
Yeah, arenadecklist.gg, standard tier list. I keep that thing updated nearly every week. If nothing happens in a week, I will take off a week. But this has been a good standard. Things change on a week-to-week basis. The format looks basically nothing like it did at the start of Kamigawa, and definitely nothing what it looked like before that. And it's been really interesting to watch it evolve. So there's a good standard right now. And it's a shame, honestly, more people don't know about it because there's really no reason to pay attention to it. And it's a real return to form for the format. So I wish there was more reason to be invested in standard right now.
I mean, we got reasons coming up. So
yes,
maybe the timing is not optimal. Like maybe it would have been cool if it happened 3 months ago or whatever.
Sure, but you're never going to nail that time. I'm just glad they're like getting their feet under them, because it shows like a different way of thinking about things. And I think that has been reflected in the last few sets. Even you can go to the simplest example and just look at like the anvil not being broken. It's so easy to break that. And it isn't. It's smartly done. And it's an excellent part of a tier 1.5 standard deck. So
and it goes all the way back to modern too.
Yep, which is very cool.
It has like a lot of the overdeveloped text on it, but it's what it takes.
Yeah, I would take overdeveloped over broken any day of the week, and this card could have easily fell on the other side of the fence. So,
all right, new card time. You ready?
Hit me.
All right, we'll start with these crime boss folks. I'm gonna do them all, Brian. I think.
Okay, you want to talk about each one of these?
Yeah, because they all have text. So
lots of words, yeah.
Lots of words. All right. Rafine, Scheming Seer, Espermana, WB, 1/4, legendary creature, Sphinx Demon, flying, ward 1. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. And connive is draw X cards, then discard X cards, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each non-land card discarded this way. So, weird mechanic, but thinking about how it plays out, I think that this is a pretty cool mechanic for any sort of like aggro or tempo deck, where you get to like you're incentivized to put on pressure, right? And then that leads to you filtering your hand, not necessarily converting into raw card advantage or anything, but you do get a lot of bonus by actually doing what the cards tell you to do. So I do like that.
I agree. I don't think this is the most elegant mechanic. It's not really evocative of anything for me, but I do see how it sits in the existing framework of standard, especially in Esper colors. You see a lot of like Kaido Suzuki, and there's also wedding invitation decks all around. And this triggers off of the total number of attacking creatures, so they don't have to be non-token, which is very nice to see. So all those token synergies work really well. You have like the unblockable creature from Kaido to put any kind of conniving counters on and get that damage through. So you see how this fits together. You'd think of Esper as a more controlling set of colors, but everything's sort of mid-range-ish right now. And I think Esper could potentially find a home for a small number of Rafine. I don't think it changes the archetype or is like an absolute home run must play, but it does some cool stuff where I could see a copy or two of this making the cut.
Yeah, Ward is pretty underrated in general, I think.
I agree.
I especially I appreciate the mana tax more than like a graveyard trespasser, discard a card or something that's like pay life in a lot of instances, because if that's kind of like your only threat or just your only important threat, it's like it doesn't really cost them anything to remove it in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
It's more so when it's like they are getting beat down by a bunch of stuff and that's your best thing, and they're light on resources where it actually starts to tax them. So like actually getting the mana tax I think is nice. And generally my rule for 3 drops is like has to be able to do something the turn of ETBs. Ward kind of helps with that, where it's like, okay, well maybe you can't actually remove it this turn. 4 toughness helps with that too. And then maybe you get like a small connive trigger, and then it's not a big deal. This is like mostly a thing that is going to matter over the course of multiple turns or whatever. So it's like a lot of like really small impact stuff that might add up to something. But then I think in terms of like the Esper decks that exist, and I played a decent amount of Esper before, it's like, would I actually want this card in the deck? Not really, because I was more like mid-range leaning control, but that can change.
Yeah, the decks tend to shift up and down the aggro control spectrum for sure. So, maybe the right tool for sometimes, not the right tool for other times. And that's one of the best parts of standard is how adaptable it is.
Yeah, but this is kind of what I'm talking about, where it's like the card has a lot of text. It's not like in your face appealing, but it does make you have to think and will probably trick me into putting it in some decks at some point.
Into crafting it with your mythic wildcard.
I didn't say that.
Okay. I didn't think so.
Lord Xander the Collector, 4 UBR, 6/6, legendary creature, vampire, demon, noble. When this enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand rounded down. Whenever this attacks, defending player mills half their library rounded down. When this dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control rounded down.
Interesting. The main draw for this card to me right now is its interaction with Sorin, and that like if you really wanted to get froggy with it, you could minus and drop this down, it being a vampire. You know, we did this kind of with the champion previously to draw some cards. Now you just half mind twist your opponent and have this big thing on the battlefield with some other payoffs as it either attacks or bites the dust. It doesn't really fit with what Vampires is doing. Maybe there's like some weirdo Vampires approach in Pioneer.
It's not bad.
The problem is, like,
obviously it's not castable, right?
Yeah, it's only good in this one scenario, right? It's like the maximum ceiling of your deck, but the floor is also really bad. So I don't know if that's exactly what Vampires wants to do. It's more of just like a play good solid things, get value here and there type deck than a swing for the fences type deck. As far as just like playing this retail, I don't think so. I think by the time you're casting this, it's not doing enough. Rounded down is a huge difference compared to rounded up.
Yeah, agreed.
So I am mostly off it for those purposes, but it's interesting in combination with Sorin. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it has so much text and does a lot of stuff, but you know, your opponent's keeping the best cards in their hand, they're keeping their best permanents. They don't necessarily have to kill this thing. They can just attack around it, go wide, sort of ignore it. So like this is not a thing that necessarily helps you stabilize in the way that you want to stabilize, which might be a death sentence.
Yeah, on turn 3 though, it's a whole different ballgame. Like this suffers a lot at that point of the game. So
then you just don't care what happens, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Ziatora the Incinerator, 3 BRG 6/6, legendary creature, demon dragon, flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, this deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. That's a lot of treasure, and you can go face with this thing, but I don't like it.
If this was like an ETB and you got some kind of instant payoff and were immediately able to turn something else into some damage to the face,
in a lot of instances, you do get the instant payoff, though.
Sure. Sometimes it will survive. But when you're investing 6 mana, you just need to have like an almost assured instant payoff. So I don't know that I'm ever going to see this being the top end in any of my decks. It's, again, just like investing 6 and not getting a return on this. That's not really how Magic works these days. And this is close. This is like as close as you can get to making a creature like this without an ETB. Because if you get to the end of turn, you're getting a real payoff. You're able to accelerate to an even later game. I mean, that's part of the problem too, is like you cast the 6 mana thing. What are you going to do with your treasures? And obviously there's stuff you can do with dragons and cheating them out. So
it's, in a way, it is like very big Goldspan Dragon, right? Where you play this and then get a refund. So you can do this and like, you know, play a removal spell or whatever.
In a way, assuming you have fodder and, you know, I mean, it reminds me somewhat of like a Corvold type thing where if you're doing like Anvil shenanigans, you always do have fodder lying around. And
yeah, I think Corvold, really well. Corvold across the board is mostly better than this.
Agreed. Mana cheaper, huge payoff, got bigger. So no dispute here. If you're looking for a reason why this could potentially see some play, that's the analog I would draw.
You need things to sacrifice that have like high power. I think Skyclave Shade helps with a lot of the cards that are in this set.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not an ideal card to necessarily put in your deck. So
no, that's fair. A lot of sacrifice shenanigans. So I think Skyclave Shade is a good thing to pick up as a potential winner from this set.
Jetmir, Nexus of Revels, 1R G dub 5/4 legendary creature, cat demon. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Creatures you control also get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. Creatures you control also get +1/+0 and have double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. This is the one that is just not very appealing to me.
Yeah, win more in a lot of ways. I mean, 4 mana 5/4 isn't bad, but if you're in Naya colors, I don't know. Like, there's some appeal to the traditional Jespera Sentinel into Magda, into this thing. You're already getting the first bonus. Your stuff has vigilance, which maybe you don't want alongside Magda, actually. But whatever. You'll find ways to benefit from Sentinel.
It's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think like that particular run-up is pretty good. Naya decks are mostly doing other stuff at this moment in Standard. They're mostly rune-based, and you've got some good competition at the 4 and 5 mana slot. Again, usually dragons, which are not bound to the ground as Jetmir is. So I think this is mostly a miss. Maybe it'll surprise me. If anything happens where like there's these ultra-wide mirrors where you're making a bunch of tokens, think back to like green-white devotion mirrors or something like that. This could be a pretty good mirror breaker in those scenarios where you just get really big out of nowhere on a single turn.
It could. 9 is a lot of creatures, though.
For sure.
So your output would just have to be pretty absurd, which I don't really see happening, but weirder things have happened.
Right. It's not something that's present in Standard right now, I don't think, but anything could happen in the future.
Falco Sparrow, Pact Weaver, 1GW3/3, legendary creature, bird demon, flying trample. This enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast spells from the top of your library by removing a counter from a creature you control in addition to paying their cost. Shield counter is the next time a thing would be damaged or destroyed, remove the counter instead, yeah?
Yes, I think that's correct. Divine Shield from Hearthstone, basically.
Yep.
And
which is awesome.
Yeah, I love it so much more than something like Hexproof or however we used to do this stuff. I mean, Ward is okay. I'm good with Ward as well. I think having access to these things that give your creature a little bit more resilience without making them horrible, unkillable nightmares that ruin every single game of Limited is where I want to be for these type of things. So I'm into this card. I'm not convinced it's like great. I just really like it. I want to try and find something to do with it. Casting from the top of your library. I guess you can just do this with like +1/+1 counters, and there's probably some way to go pretty deep with that.
Yep, there are a lot of cards in the set.
Yeah, so maybe this is good enough, but it is a small body. Once the shield counter is dealt with, pretty easily killable. I don't know that you'll always get this as a 2-for-1. If you do, though, bodes very well for this being playable.
How are you not going to get a 2-for-1 with this?
Well, you can do it from any sort of like damage, right?
Yeah, but
so
it's
blocking,
not like
attacking.
Yeah, but generally, if you're attacking with this, they have a 4/4 flyer or whatever. You're probably doing that for a reason. You wouldn't just spew the shield counter, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like most of the time this is going to get a 2-for-1, and then hopefully you are doing other stuff, which means that you can keep the shield counter on this, but Standard also hasn't necessarily been about 4 mana super slow engine.
Yeah, it's mid-rangey, but not that mid-rangey. Things kind of accelerate past that point pretty quickly.
This card is cool though. Anything with a shield counter, I think, deserves a look. And there were Standard formats where I would potentially consider an engine like this. And this is not. It's not like you're just like only casting creatures or whatever. It's like pretty easy to actually cast stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, land counts do trend high in present Standard. So, I mean, you're probably only looking at like 33 hits out of 27, but you could cheat on that some ways. So,
yeah, you have like the white Elvish Visionary or whatever, stuff like that to clear the lands off the top.
Sure. Yeah.
It's doable. If you need it, it is there. Elspeth Resplendent. 3 dub, 5 starting loyalty, +1. Choose up to 1 target creature, put a +1/+1 counter and a counter from among flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance on it. So that's 2 different counters to feed Falco, potentially. -3. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. What are you booing?
Boo. Too much like Collected Company. I'm not here for it.
7 cards.
And you
only need to hit one thing, dude. Okay.
I'm missing.
-7, create 5 3/3 white angel creature tokens with flying. I think people are not super stoked about this, and I kind of get it, but I mean, depending on the 3 mana hits that exist, you get to play this and get like 2 very relevant things potentially. And the thing also comes with a shield counter. So obviously you have to hit. So sorry for any, Brian G relators out there, but this doesn't strike me as that bad. But you did bring up earlier that there's a lot of competition at 4 and 5, so I'm sympathetic to that too.
Yeah, one thing I like about Elspeth is that it accelerates to its ultimate very quickly. And again, if
I'm not doing that.
What do you mean you're not doing that? There's no circumstances under which you just want to get tall and get over the rest of the battlefield. We talked about board stalls potentially influencing these games, things getting very wide. So adding like +1/+1 counter plus vigilance can stall a lot of offense on your opponent's side.
Lifelink
while you make your own offense. Lifelink as well. Yep. I think these abilities are very relevant. I think sizing can matter quite a bit. And then if you're just racing to make 5/3/3 White Angels, I think that wins most games.
It'll come up for sure. I'm not about that life though. I just want to play this for the minus.
Okay, I'd rather be safe and know I'm getting some guaranteed value out of it, and I'm not going to miss and reveal 7 lands off the top.
Word. Do you think that this card is fine, decent, playable, terrible?
I think it's playable. I'm also not over the moon about it, but I'd be shocked if it sees 0 play.
Okay. Ob Nixilis the Adversary. 1 BR, 3 starting loyalty, casualty X. The copy isn't legendary and has starting loyalty X. As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do copy the spell, the copy becomes a token. So turn 2, Skyclave Shade. Turn 3, this, sack it. You get 2 Ob Nixilises with 3 starting loyalty. Not bad. +1, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. -2, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with whenever this creature dies, it deals 1 to any target. -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Dude, there's always something to get us sucked into Rakdos Sack.
This card melts my brain. Like, just absolutely shreds it to Swiss cheese in terms of...
I love this card.
How good is the output? I think it's like very, very good, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
I mean, okay, so Rakdos Sack has a lot of small creatures. They have some ways of making some things that are like decently sized, right? I don't know if there's like Zeatora and Ob Nixilis both are just like, just find a 7 power creature that can't attack or whatever just to sacrifice it. So it's like, okay, that's something you can try and look for, I guess. Because if you do that, you just get to ult this thing right away off the copy. But other than that, it's just like you get 2 copies of this thing. Even if you sack a Shambling Ghast, you're just like going after their life total so quickly.
Yeah, just plussing this aggressively does a lot of damage with 2 of these on the battlefield. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested. I have the sense this card is very, very good. It's just when I'm like trying to envision battlefield, something about it trying to like track both loyalties simultaneously and like track the output of these 2 things. I don't feel like I'm accurately picturing battlefields involving this card. And I don't know why. It just is not clicking with me yet, but I'm excited to try this one out for sure.
Dude, there's like this, Meat Hook, Anvil. I mean, we played Rakdos Sack decks before where it was like, we just need like another thing to drain our opponent, right? And played Bastion of Remembrance, which was awful.
Yeah.
And then Meat Hook came out and it's like, okay, that's number 1, right? If you're going super hard on sacrifice stuff. And then we got the Anvil, which also helps. And then like this contributes so much too. So I feel like you play this, and if you casualty it for any amount and also just like, maybe have a blocker, it's just like the game becomes a sub game, right? Where you're just trying to burn your opponent out as quickly as possible. And it seems really tough to actually get through that.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of the card right now, but there was a mode of Rakdos Sack that was playing the card where you could sacrifice an artifact to make a 3/1 with haste. And that kind of plays very well into Ob Nixilis and making these disposable tokens and
like Sekenzen Smelter or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Shota's deck. I don't mind that card. I think that card's pretty good.
No, I think that card's good too. It sort of got supplanted by Fable of the Mirror Breaker as time went on, and we don't really see the sack decks built like that anymore. But maybe you look at that again alongside Ob Nixilis. Maybe you turn to Skyclave Shade, like you said. Some really good ways to make 3 power and just start plussing Ob and put your opponent in a really tough spot.
Yeah, I think this card is very good.
Excited to see it.
It like even so, you take like your Naya Jasper Sentinel Magna deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jun showed up some of the time for Infernal Grasp and whatever other black card they think they needed. Like this as like an anti-control threat is also just pretty solid.
I agree with you.
Skip Urobrask, yeah?
Yeah. It's like fine. I'm not sold.
Vivian on the Hunt. 4 GG, 4 starting loyalty, +2. You may sack a creature. Birthing Pod. If you do, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's mana value, put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. +1, mill 5 cards, then put any number of creature cards milled this way into your hand. -1, create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token.
You know what we're up to with this, right? You've gotten the memo as far as this card.
Is this the Planeswalker sneak attack?
Yeah.
Thing?
Yeah. This is the Splinter Twin situation.
Yeah, you sneak attack it, you pod away the thing, get Felidar, blink this, pod away Felidar, get Karmic Guide back Felidar, whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Into Kiki Jiki and eventually win. Yeah. I mean, like, it's probably fine. The question is, like, how are you building the pieces around something like that? I have the sense that, like, Vivian might just be a good card if your deck is just a ton of multicolor acceleration and creatures, and you just ramp up to Vivian. And, you know, if you don't have your combo set up, you just go ahead and do some plus, mill 5 cards, make a 4/4. Like, all these modes are very, very good. Obviously, Vivian's an expensive card, so you're playing a weird game at that point, but maybe there's a way to do this with, like, Devoted Druid into secondary combos, into Vivian, into, I don't know, like, are we going up to Karn? Are we looking to just play massive Planeswalkers that can be cheated into play and get immediate value? I don't know. I think it's all interesting. It's certainly worth putting some reps into as far as the modern space goes. I have a feeling it's markedly worse than many other things we could do, but these things have a way of exciting people, giving us something to work on. So I'm cool with it. And if it makes up a new tier 2 deck, I'd be really excited.
The +1 is worded interestingly.
How so?
I don't know. It's like you mill 5, so then they go to the graveyard, then go to your hand, right? Versus like a mulch type of thing where you just like reveal X cards and put them in your hand.
Yeah, I wonder if that's exploitable. That's interesting.
I don't necessarily view it as exploitable. If anything, it kind of seems like a downside, right? If they have like a rest in peace or whatever.
There's things that will benefit from that. You're right. Rest in peace is a big problem for sure. Shuts that down. But there's so many other things to do with this card. I'm pretty sure you'll be okay in that scenario.
Desecrated Tomb. Get your bonus 1/1.
If you would like to do that, you could. I guess you would like leaves the graveyard triggers would work, right? So there's the spirit thing that cares about that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm sure that's not what this card is about, but it's weird that they did it that way. It's interesting they did it that way. And I wonder if there's some potential upside you can suss out from it.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of standard, your pod chain has to be like very good, very powerful, I think.
Yeah. Or
you play this as the 6 mana Garruk where you're just drawing a bunch of creatures, which I think is also fine. But that Garruk was also, it had like other good abilities, and this is kind of medium compared to that. So I don't know. This is playable. It could show up. It seems worse than Elspeth, definitely worse than Ob Nixilis if you want to compare Planeswalkers.
Yeah, I think just chaining a bunch of 4/4s is going to matter quite often. If you look how most of these decks are set up, they do play the mana curve pretty well. They mostly climb all the way through. If you're talking about like a Jaspera Sentinel Magna deck, I think you cover every spot on the curve. So you might be able to turn your 4-drop into a Goldspan Dragon and really benefit from that. And then have a bunch of mana for your next turn after you mill 5 cards and put more threats out on the battlefield. So I could see this having a home as the top end and just your generic green play dummies deck.
Yeah, that's fair. People were playing the hexproof, like +2/+2 counters on your turn thing. So.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess I'll point out too, like 4/4 green Rhino Warrior. It goes well with the Seeker's Chariot. Everything kind of goes well with the Seeker's Chariot, but that's a fine token. And
yeah, this is clean. It's clean.
Yeah, that's a big appeal of Ren and 7, which is sort of filling that role now for these decks. If you look at the teamer decks that topped the standard tier list over on aretadecklist.gg, bring us up to $3 next month, please. They often benefit from those type of things, Ren and 7 as their top end, and then doing the Seeker's Chariot stuff. So I don't see any reason Vivian couldn't do the same thing.
All right, what are we talking about next? Now the cards get really weird.
They do get weird. I still like a lot of these cards, but I'm not sure many of them are destined to really reshape standard. Jaxus is a weird card. Do you want to talk about Jaxus?
Yeah, this is the one where I saw people posting about it, and I read it once, and my brain melted.
There's a lot of brain melters in this one, but that's just kind of how we do Magic cards these days.
All right, 3R, 2/3, legendary creature, human warrior. R, tap, discard a card. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. Blitz, 1R. If you cast the spell for its blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
So, if you have a creature out on the battlefield, this is like 3 mana divination with upside, if everything goes right. And it can be substantial upside, right? Like making this haste creature it could be a goldspan dragon, it could be a boat, it could be anything. So as in terms of raw rate, like you need some stuff to go correctly. You need to have a secondary thing working with you. But just the blitz play here, pay 2, put this onto the battlefield, pay 1, copy something. There's really good return on that. That's card advantage. And if you manage to do something else with it, I think this is a completely suitable power for standard. And then there's also the long game option of this. Just like your opponent's low on resources, you play Jaxus, and it can just take over the game by itself in some scenarios. So,
well, it's catalog, right? Because you have to discard a card to copy.
Okay, that's fair. I kind of glossed over that. So yes, no card advantage there. Just generating a little bump, a little move through your deck. Very different scenario. I think I still like it.
I think it's still not bad. It's just like the amount of weird burst scenarios that come up through this are kind of cool. I can't really unpack all of them because it just seems like a lot of weird possibilities. But the downside to me is that like you shouldn't really be interested in hardcasting this thing, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like it's a good, powerful engine, but 2/3 body with no immediate return is pretty sad. It's
tough.
It's going to go poorly.
Yeah, you need it to survive, and it probably depends a lot on like what removal spells look like. But you see how important Fable of the Mirror Breaker is, and very different card. Obviously, it just is generating value throughout its entire existence. It has the weird adventure creature thing going on, where it just is so many cards in one.
Yep.
But when you look at that actual body, not impressive. Maybe the versatility of Jaxus, the fact that you do have this blitz line, is worth a little something. And I'm really interested in the idea that you could generate a lot of potentially lethal damage out of nowhere. Something like Goldspan Dragon just getting real big real fast. So
yeah, and then if you have things that are worth discarding, then that's fine too.
Yeah,
you're not
another bonus point for sure.
But similarly to like Connive, it's just like, well, even if you are just doing a lot of filtering for, trying to get some extra damage on the table, like that's also completely fine too. That helps you further your game plan, set up for next turn, whatever.
Yeah. And that has been important, again, in a very mid-range focused standard. So
correct.
Useful ability.
Broker's Ascendancy is not great. Maybe other Ascendancies could be cool, though. I could see that.
I don't think Broker's Ascendancy is awful, specifically with Planeswalkers. I could see a world where this snowballs very quickly, especially when Planeswalkers are making creatures, and you're just kind of getting that double hit of value.
Yeah. That feeds Falco, too, if you care about that.
Yeah, good point.
We have the Triomes, which are great. We have the Charms, which are all pretty good.
Yeah, too many words to read them here on the podcast. I feel like your brain would just gloss over. But all of them are interesting. Anytime you have super modal stuff like this, it has almost always mattered, kind of regardless of what these cards do, actually. If there's enough text on it, it'll find something to do. It'll be important in the format.
I am a big fan of the Jund Charm.
Okay.
Esper Charm number 2.
Okay, I like the Bat Charm quite a bit. So that shows that they all have their place.
That one's good too. I am just not excited about the Naya stuff, man. I think the Charm is okay, but it's just like that combined with the head gangster, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm not really into what the the Naya folks are up to.
Oh, they're trying to get super wide. I get it. There doesn't seem to be a lot of punishment for that, but Farewell is in the format. It seems some spot play, so I'm not really into the idea of just like play my Naya deck, get wider than you can deal with, because even like things like Esper, which are ostensibly playing on the battlefield and very mid-rangey, they have their sideboard answers to these type of strategies. So I don't think like amping up those strategies pushes them into tier 1 in standard. They still have just intrinsic flaws.
Yeah, but I mean, part of your strategy has to either be like very resilient or very fast. And if you're playing
neither.
If you're playing 3 colors and you have a Triumph, well, you're probably not going to be that fast, most likely.
Right.
So less excited about the Naya stuff. They're going to need to preview like some really good Naya stuff. Some of the stuff that I've seen that does look good, I guess I'll just talk about Gala Greeters right now. It's just like, well, this I would just not play this in a Naya deck, right? I would just play this in Gruul or whatever. But Gala Greeters is 1G 1/1 Elf Druid, has Alliance, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this, create a tap treasure token, or you gain 2 life. And it's like, okay, Alliance is pretty clearly like the Naya thing, right? That's what you're getting rewarded for. But I'm not trying to do Naya to trigger this,
I agree with you. Note, very importantly, this triggers off of token creatures, which is always kind of like a toss-up when it comes to these type of effects. So I think you're being very pushed in that direction. We know we have Wedding Invitation as an important card in the format, so that kind of stuff is probably existent.
I mean, Chariot too.
Yeah, Chariot. Those decks even play like Starnheim Unleashed. So there's a lot of stuff they're already doing to get multiple bodies onto the battlefield, and Gala Greeters may want to have something to do with that. It's really bad on its like own. You just play this card, terrible top deck, no impact on the battlefield really whatsoever. It has to combine with something. So it's got some downside. I think people are maybe a little too hyped about this card. I've seen talk of like putting this in Winota and Pioneer, and I think that's just going a little bit too far. I don't think this is always going to give you that upside you think you're getting. Yeah. So I would pump the brakes a little bit, but it probably has a place, solid participant in this format is my guess.
I think it's worth trying in Winota, but I'm also not intimately familiar with the deck list where it's like, what 2-drop are you cutting for this? I think that does matter a lot, but
certainly
if games go until turn 6, turn 7, and your output is good, you are going to get a lot of value off this.
Yeah, as far as like what you're doing in Winota, you're thinking about things like Prosperous Innkeeper, and then I would point right below Gala Greeters, we have Courier's Briefcase, 1 colorless green artifact treasure. When Courier's Briefcase enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Tap, sacrifice Courier's Briefcase, add 1 mana of any color. So you just kind of get right to your Winota turn and you have that creature ready to go. So very similar in a lot of ways to Prosperous Innkeeper without the life gain upside and this weird 5 mana draw 3 cards ability, which I don't think matters, but maybe you can make it matter if you wanted to. So that's an interesting little potential upside.
I like that ability, but I can't think of a situation where I would like want a 1/1 citizen in a deck where I could activate that ability, because it's one of each color. So
that is a good question.
I'm a little torn.
Fair question.
I'm a little
fair
torn.
Question.
Nimble Larsonist, Espermana.
Yeah.
2/1 creature bird rogue flying. When this enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery from it and exile that card.
My favorite card in the set thus far.
It's so narrow, but
yeah.
like not bad. I don't know.
It's bad. It's bad. I know that. I know that in my heart. I know like I'm going to get punished for playing this.
It depends. You won't play Collected Company, which will hit, but you'll play this instead, which won't hit.
Yes.
Depending on how the format shakes up, I can see this card being very good.
Yeah, it's so narrow, so narrow. You have to be concerned about very specific things. But you know what I want to like blink this and get up to shenanigans and get value from it. And probably none of that is going to happen. It's just like supposed to be this uncommon limited placeholder, and I get so excited about it because it reminds me of cards from 20 years ago. So don't pay attention to me. Just let me do my thing over here. And I admit this is probably not good.
Think about siding this in like a control mirror when you could just sideboard a planeswalker instead.
Yeah, an actual good card, Kaido, like at the same cost. You could just do that. But you know what? Let's try this Nimble Larsonist. It might work for us.
Oh man, it's a rogue.
Yeah, get Zareth-san in there. I got you 2 casts of this. Now you got a stew going.
Yep, you sure do. A little chat. 1U instant casualty 1. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. This is not bad.
It's okay. It's okay. If you have enough disposable stuff around, I think you could benefit from this pretty easily.
Is this even like close to Deadly Dispute, though? That's the thing.
No, it's not. But are we going to have Deadly Dispute forever is the other question I would ask.
That's a good call.
And we're coming up on rotation, which feels wild to me. I don't know why. I guess because like kind of blacked out this year and don't really remember all that much of it, especially when it relates to Magic. But we are coming up on rotation soon, and a lot of things are going to change. We need to find some replacements for these old favorites, and Deadly Dispute is probably chief among them. So this isn't the worst way to do it. I'll say that.
Light them up. 1R sorcery casualty 2. Light them up deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. In old Magic, this card would be really good.
Yeah, I don't believe it is anymore.
Yeah, same.
Why can't it be an instant? Like, really? That's going too far if we make this an instant?
I mean, casualty stuff as an instant is kind of weird because then you get the spots where they kill your thing and you just get to sack it and respond.
Yeah, awesome. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. No, I mean that's completely fine. This one is super weak, but it has the potential to be like really oppressive too. So I'm kind of fine with this being weak. Like if you really want to turn to this, you can.
I don't want to turn to this.
I want it to be good. I just don't.
I'll turn to anything else instead.
Yeah. Disciplined Duelist, Bant mana, 2/1, Human Citizen, double strike, enters with a shield counter on it.
I don't know. I mean, like there's some pretty good pump stuff out there, but shield counter is good, but no evasion whatsoever. This probably just runs into tokens forever, so mostly off it.
Yeah, but like you get to, put runes on it or whatever, man. I don't know. Give it trample.
Yeah.
Let's go.
There's better things to put runes on these days.
It'll happen. An offer you can't refuse. You instant counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens.
Sure, you don't want to attempt a horribly offensive accent, as you say, an offer you can't refuse?
Not really.
Okay. I was just making sure. I wanted to give you the opportunity. I like this card. I always like these weirdo counter spells that come with tremendous downside. I was a big Swan Song fan back in the day. You can often find spots for things like this if you are creative and really think about their purposes. But they're narrow, they're specific. Often they're better in older formats than current formats where giving someone 2 treasure tokens is kind of a disaster. But if it becomes, the format becomes about, say, Vivian, as a really important thing to do, and you just need to get an edge in Vivian mirrors and have the mana advantage, you ever snipe something like that with this card, really powerful. It's not conditional in any way. You only need to hold up 1 mana. So it wouldn't shock me if this sees some play in very narrow spots.
I think I died to the Swan Song 2/2 more than I won games where I cast Swan Song.
It's possible. You just weren't selective enough in your Swan Songing. You didn't have the wherewithal to successfully be a Swan Songer.
I think Swan Song just sucked.
It's possible. Which sucks more, Swan Song or an offer you can't refuse?
No, it's definitely Swan Song.
Okay.
I like the treasures are good, right? But ultimately, if you're trading up on mana, first of all, so like you're kind of getting an edge there. And then if you're in some sort of kind of like long drawn out game or whatever, then the artifacts don't necessarily matter that much.
Yeah. I mean, in the late game, this can be an absolute house. So, if it gets to a place where we're playing these really long drawn out games, and I would be shocked if there wasn't 1 or 2 of these in every single blue deck.
Yeah. And non-creature spell is
it's big net.
Yeah, it is a big net. So I definitely like that a lot. Strangle. R, sorcery. This deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker.
Okay.
Dude, I love it.
I mean, are you gonna play it?
Maybe. I think a lot of my decks will like Voltage Surge more.
Yep.
But there are definitely going to be decks that don't necessarily have artifacts.
Hopefully not. Not if I'm playing red. I'm going to go ahead and get my anvil going. I really love Voltage Surge. I think it was a great print and a huge turning point for sort of those decks in the format. So I totally buy into the impact the perfect removal spell can have on an archetype. I just, again, wish it was an instant, I guess. I don't know why I'm being so picky about my removal spells, but sorcery kind of dooms this one for me.
It's not like sorcery is bad so much as instant speed 4 damage is really, really good.
Sure, right? I agree, but we have that, and I think you're probably incentivized to jump through those hoops to get it because it is so powerful.
What if you're playing red and you're not playing a bunch of artifacts?
Then you're a fool, and I have no time for you.
What if you're playing some werewolves or something?
Yeah, werewolves are pretty good. That might be okay.
Got them. Anything else?
No, that's about it. There's like Getaway Car, which I think is an interesting vehicle, but nothing great. Some removal spells. There's the Halo Fountain. If you want to just, get wrecked on Halo, you stick your head in the fountain. It's going to be great. But other than that, I think this is like a pretty slow start for a set. There's neat stuff. Nothing that blows me out of the water. Maybe Ob is the one that is really like blowing me out of the water. Although the more I talk about Vivian, the more I'm kind of convinced that could be an important part of endgames as well. So Planeswalkers kind of stealing the show for me thus far, which hasn't been the case recently. Maybe it should have been. If you go back and look at Kamigawa, we were not high enough on the Wandering Emperor. Probably, about right on Kaido, I would say. But
I think all of them was just like, okay, I could see, where this would fit or whatever. But yeah, Emperor ended up being a little bit more ubiquitous than we thought it was going to be.
Right.
But like when we started talking about the card, and it was like, wait, they're like, they can't attack with the small thing because you just ambush it with a 2/2. They can't attack with just a big thing because you just exile it. And then it's like, oh wait, this kind of has like the Kaido ability where they can't attack it on the turn you play it. It's like all those things were like, okay. These are all upside things now that we're actually all talking about it. So
yeah. I sort of did the same thing to myself with Vivian on this show.
Yeah, exactly.
I was mostly thinking about combo stuff, but the more I see it as just a fair card, the more I think it's quite good. So Ob and Vivian stealing the show for me thus far, and looking forward to seeing what else there is in Streets of New Capenna. 7 out of 10 thus far. That's my rating.
Yeah, I agree with that. The weird thing for me is we have the triumphs and the charms, the guild leaders. I don't know why my brain can't come up with like what they're actually called. The mob bosses. What are they actually called?
I don't. Why are you asking me? This is like
Crime
clear
lords.
Vorthos stuff that I am not going to be on top of.
My brain just will not.
Family heads.
Family head, sure.
Is that right?
I don't know.
I don't know. That felt very right to me when I said it.
Anyway,
I got very excited about it.
So like you have those folks, which are like, okay, they have text, but it's not like they're necessarily the builder rounds for the archetype necessarily. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you don't have a signpost for like, you start with 4 of this card and like this is the thing that makes you want to be the shard. So we have the charms that are pretty good and the triumphs that make things a lot easier. And then I'm just like, okay, but like, why would I be 3 colors so far? And I haven't really seen that. So like,
I agree with you.
We need to get
not beyond what we have already anyway. I don't think this has changed anything.
Yeah. I mean, so like Esper, it's like, okay, yeah, you get your triumph and you get your charm. I don't know if you play 4 of the charms or whatever, but like you're already in 3 colors. So cool. This is just a value add, but what are the things that are telling me to actually play all 3 colors? And I'm waiting on that.
Next week, they'll be here. I have faith.
I mean, we only have one more preview show, right?
How is that possible? This is like a super condensed preview season. So we're going to have 10,000 cards to talk about next week. Are we already at top 10 next week? I don't think so, right? Like we're just nearly at the end.
No. I mean, it depends on when release is. That can make things weird, I guess.
Yeah. I want to do one more week of previews, then we'll do top 10. Give me 3 weeks of preview season. If you don't give it to me, I'm going to take it, just like I took back the Pro Tour. Deal with it, Wizards.
You took back the Pro Tour? Good job, buddy.
Well, I took back the name.
Yeah.
I don't know if I actually did that. We did it. We did it as a group.
Dude, Ob Nixilis is busted.
Okay.
It's $18. I don't know. I've been bit before, man.
That's a lot of dollars. I don't even. Never mind. Don't listen to me. I don't know what Magic cards cost anymore. They either cost a wild card or they don't. That's how I can evaluate them these days.
Okay, so there are 3 variants, and the community will decide on what variant they like the most, and then that one will basically absorb all the value. Because like everyone will want that version, not the regular one.
Well, isn't it just the rarest version? Like, what is? Are there multiple same rarity versions?
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Oh, but there's 3.
So like regular Kaito is 11.
Yeah,
this is like a fairly beloved card that also shows up in a decent amount of spots, right? And then the 2 weirdo versions, the borderless and the showcase, are both 30. But like the regular is really rare. Cheap.
Well, that is the upside of all these variants, right? Is that if you just want a basic Magic card, they've generally gotten cheaper.
Which I kind of do. I kind of do.
I don't know. I was very hard into the get the weirdest variant possible, and I'm mostly off that now. I think they just kind of have what's the biggest form of jumping the shark you could do? Like shoot over the shark with jet powered skis and do a 20 backflips before you land. It's so far over the shark that it's not even funny at this point.
Dude, we're not even there yet. Just wait. I guarantee it gets worse before it gets better. That's the best part.
11 variants of Gala Greeters on this Mythic spoiler site thus far.
That's only one card, though. I mean,
for now.
Yeah,
who knows how many there are in the future. And I see there's like 2 Jaxus. Why are there 2? Like, what's different about these 2? They're both full art, right?
I'm scrolling down.
Yeah, scroll down below the pile of Gala Greeters.
They're both full art, but they're different art. One's the buy box.
Yeah. Buy a box. Okay. Yeah. This is so silly. It's so silly at this point. The number of variants.
No, the buy a box is normal. That's fine.
Yeah, but look at this website. We weren't even sure that these family heads were in the set. Like I was not 100% convinced that they weren't just commander cards. You can't tell anything. And look, as we get ready to do live Magic again, and I'm assuming coverage will be part of that somewhere, and I hope coverage is part of that. You and I talked about a game we covered decades ago on the SCG tour.
I think I mostly blocked this from my memory.
Yeah, I remember it very well. There was someone in the feature match area who was playing either Affinity or I think what more likely it was Lantern, and had masterpiece versions of every single artifact in their deck. And somewhere along the line, like it was literally like halfway through the match, we were both just like, I have no idea what's happening anymore. And we just gave up and talked about other things until the match was over because it was completely impossible to cover. I think that might happen like every other round now when it comes to Magic coverage. And I will tell you this, if I am ever in a position to participate in a high level, important Magic tournament again, I'm going to ruin it for whoever's casting my matches. I will make sure that the worst version of every possible card is in my deck just to emphasize a point of how silly this has gotten and how much we put this nonsense ahead of just playability and actually having a readable, visually recognizable card game.
You can't do that because your mechanics are not fast enough.
I will sacrifice my entire tournament to make this point.
That's fair. Alternatively, you could have like 2 versions of your deck and only play the weird one.
Okay, yeah. I like this. This is nice. Which do you think is worse? Do you think it's worse if I just like find the version I decide is the weirdest, most obscure version, or if I play 4 versions of every possible 4 of in my deck?
Okay, so that might be worse because it's going to be hard for them to just be like okay,
shift modes.
I recognize that is a charm or whatever, and then the next time you play a different version of a charm, and they can't recognize it, right?
Let me tell you how sick I am. This is the most motivated I've been to do well in Magic in probably a decade. Okay. I actually care about this. Brian, this is what is driving me.
Brian, I'm actually going to throw in on this. So here's the plan, right?
Yeah.
Is either you, I think you should build it because like you probably want these cards more than me. And also
I don't, but continue.
Well, I mean, you you own these cards. You at some point have like actively seek them out for like ambulance, stuff like that, right? Whereas
sure. Yeah. I have some weirdos there.
So we need to play the same 75 so that we can, it's like, okay, I have a camera match this round, hand me your deck, right?
Right.
And then next round you have the camera match, hand you the deck back.
Yeah, we could actually just do it with like a whole bunch of people in the Discord, and we all figure out, we'll work on it. We'll figure out the best deck. Like I said, I'm motivated for once, so I will actually do this.
Yeah, it's just like you have to play the same 75 as us.
Yep. And then you get the nightmare version, and hopefully it's just like, we crack the tournament open. So it's someone that we worked with every single round on camera, and we just pass the deck back and forth, just ruining lives.
I have basically played in opens like that, where that happens. So it's non-zero for sure.
Yep. Here's hoping. I finally have something to strive for. I feel like a new man.
The messed up thing though, dude, is that you're like, man, I hope coverage comes back. And then you're like, I'm going to ruin coverage. It's like, dude.
Look,
we just got this back. Why are you trying to make him take it away? I'm
going to ruin it so we can save it in the future. You see, I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top, Gerald. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, you might be saving Magic as a whole, which is kind of cool, and I definitely appreciate that.
Nobody's going to pay any attention. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to listen. I mean, it's such an obvious problem that if anyone cared about the problem, then you would have addressed it already.
Yeah. The problem that most stands out to me is as a vendor and trying to sell cards online. And I think it's like better in this set because all the cards are individually numbered now. Like the different versions are numbered instead of them having the same number.
Yeah.
So that helps, but it's still like a pretty bad solution.
I'm not even thinking that. I just think about the person who like doesn't live Magic, like is, just an occasional FNM player and wants to go play Standard at their local store, and they show up and they have to look at 4 different versions of the same card throughout their tournament. You're just asking so much of, and I think about how I learn Magic. Like I learn it through flashes of color. I don't even see the art. I just know like, oh, there's those colors. So this card is here, and I shortcut all this stuff. And I need that to be able to function. I can't sit there and have to break down every single card. And everyone, I think, who has played any large amount of Magic has like gotten confused by a card that looks like another card, or, you play that limited format where 2 cards look very similar to each other and you misread your hand at a crucial moment. Have you done that? Or is this just a me thing?
No, I mean, it happens.
Yeah. And so you're just amplifying this problem with every single card that exists. And I think it's like there's a lot of things I can forgive, but I think this is a direct decision that puts dollars and cents ahead of playability. And as soon as you make those lines like very, very clear, where you say money is more important in this scenario to sell these variants and do this stuff than to present the best game to play possible, you lose me. I can't support you in that. And then there's so many things you could do that don't do that, right? You can extend the frames all you want. I've always loved extended frames.
Yeah, those are cool.
Do that forever because it's the same picture and it's not hard to see that. And even foils, where so many people dislike foils. I very much embrace foils. I'm down with that because they look exactly the same. As soon as you break from that, though, you lose me. And I think you're just doing it to make money, and I can't get on board.
So Max Kahn posted a thing today. He's working on redoing the decklist viewer for the NRG series site.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I posted was that I really badly wanted a shareable high-res visual decklist exporter with card text visible and readable. And it is mainly for people who are not like, they don't have every single Magic card memorized with all the card art. And there was a time where I think if you were a PTQ regular, you probably did, but it was a lot easier also then because there was only like 1 card art, and the amount of like playable cards was also much smaller. The amount of Magic cards as a whole was much smaller.
Yep.
And these problems like exacerbate, and especially as Magic gets bigger and has spanned across 3 decades now, where like you are getting influxes of new players as, people hit 14, 15, 16, whatever, and start actually getting into Magic and everything. And it's just like, you need these things to be accessible. And we learned this lesson so long ago with like the textless cryptic command, right? I just don't understand why they go back on that stuff so often.
The thing that blows my mind is it's the same people now telling me the other thing. The same people who told me why I couldn't have cryptic command be textless are now telling me that this is fine and there's no problem here. So that's what really makes me feel wacky.
Yeah, it is very strange. And if there was actually a good rationale for it, I could get on board, but it was just like, that's what I thought then. This is what I feel now. And my opinion just changed kind of randomly. And it's like, what? I don't understand.
Pay no attention to that bag of money.
Yeah.
Added to Wizards of the Coast coffers. That is not related to this decision.
Yeah. I don't get it, man. It's fine.
You do get it. You get it.
I get it. This is like the least of our worries, man. It's fine.
Agreed.
One thing at a time. Let's bring coverage back first.
And then we'll ruin it.
Game.
Good luck.